I am speaking today with Jasmine Jasudavicius, returning to action in Montreal, May 10th, 2025, UFC 315, taking on the former strawweight champion and flyweight challenger, Jessica Andrade. Huge fight, coming off a historic fight. And I'm going to ask you something completely different. I want to hear about this camping story. So when you texted me the other day, you said, sorry I didn't get back to you right away. I was camping. And I went, yeah, that's the most Canadian answer you could have possibly given me. But it is still technically winter. And I know this was in like a dome or kind of like a yurt thing. So how was this?
It was amazing. I actually prefer to camp in the winter. The silence is like, unmatched in the winter versus the summer. And like the ice, like, so it was like a dome, but it had a big huge like window at the front of it, so I was able to see the lake and everything. And most of the lake was frozen, so it was really cool to see like where it was frozen but had cracked and kind of like came together. It was like icebergs almost like smashing, and they all kind of like built on top of each other, and it was almost like a turquoise-ish color of the ice, and it was like very, very cool to see.
Now, I imagine you've got like a little heater inside this dome, but do you still do a fire outside or something? Like, how does it work?
Yeah, we have a wood stove inside, and so it's a lot of fun for me to be able to cook on the wood stove. I love cooking, so like being able to do it on the wood stove and have to like put the potatoes in the actual fire and everything is like really cool. But also we did make a fire outside only one of the nights because it does get quite cold. Even with the fire going, it still is pretty cold. But it was like mild enough one of the nights that we had one outside, so made some s'mores.
Nice, nice. Now, I'll ask you one more on this. You mentioned you prefer camping in winter. Was this your first time doing it then, or have you done it before?
No, I've done it, a bunch of times before. Not a ton, but like, enough that I know what I'm doing out there.
Awesome. So, getting into the fight then, was this something that you had planned after the last fight, kind of some time off before you go back into another camp? How did it come up?
I planned on taking time off. I was just gonna like I've been very active since 23. I fought 7 times. And so I've been very, very active. So after the last fight, well, it was actually before the fight prior to the last fight, I'm like, I think I gotta take a tiny bit of time off. And then the Saudi Arabia fight came about. So I was like, oh, I gotta jump on this opportunity. So then I did that one. I'm like, okay, after Saudi Arabia, I'm gonna take some time off. And then the card was in Montreal. I'm like, how can I pass this up?
How much of it? Because there's the card is in Montreal, and there's also the name that's being offered, a former champion. So, what was your reaction when you hear Jessica Andrade's name?
I love it. Every step to be able to get to the belt is ideal. And her having the belt before, she was like, a very talented girl, and to be able to perform against her would kind of like propel me to where I believe I can be and where I want to be in order to be able to fight for that belt.
Definitely. Now, I want to, before we get to that fight, ask you about the last fight because that was also a little bit of history, right? You go over to Saudi Arabia, you're in the first women's UFC fight there ever, and they don't have a lot of Saudi women who fight. I know the PFL has one, I believe her name is Hatif. I'm flubbing Alice Al Saif. I think I'm flubbing the name. But there's not a lot. So when you go over there and you get to do that, you think, maybe I got to inspire some people to pick up this sport. Like, what was the whole experience like?
It was amazing. It was such an honor to be able to do that. When I first signed for that fight, I didn't know that it was going to be the first female UFC fight there. So once I heard about that, then I was like, oh my goodness, like what an honor to be able to, regardless of win or loss, to be able to be part of history like that. And, to get the win on top is, the cherry. But it was amazing. I've had so many people reach out and say like what an inspiration it was because they, came from either Saudi Arabia or a country similar that doesn't really allow women to fight. And for them to see me being able to fight there, it kind of like gave them a little bit of spark, a little bit of like hope, if they, because there's one girl that she was, you know, kind of like toying with the idea of MMA, and she said that it really helped her have the courage to actually like pursue it and like talk to her parents about it, and you know, had the courage to actually like go out there and do it herself.
Well, that's very cool. Was there, you know, I know when you go over there, especially as a woman, you got to be careful how you dress, what you say. Was there any trepidation? Like, what was the reception like?
The reception was great. I feel like what I kind of anticipated going in, and like we got emails saying like, oh, watch for this, be careful of this, you got to wear sleeves down to here, and you know, the whole kit and caboodle. And once I got there, then it was like everyone was very welcoming, everyone was kind, everyone was good. Like I didn't feel like how I kind of thought I was gonna feel by, you know, the information I was given leading up to going there. And I was like pleasantly surprised by how welcoming and like appreciative they were of a female fighter there.
Well, that's good to hear too. So you go over, you get the win against Mayra Bueno Silva Shitara, and dominant decision. I think you won all three rounds on all three scorecards, if I remember. What were kind of your takeaways from the fight itself?
Just confidence. Like I knew she was obviously talented and everything, so I knew it was a tall task for me. And for me to go in there and kind of like perform the way I did just shows that I am doing the right work, and kind of like continue on doing this because it is working. And you know, I believe that my trajectory can still be going like this.
Well, your trajectory is skyrocketing. So you go over, you get the win. Shitara fought for the title last January, well, January 2024 now. And then you come back and you get this call, Andrade in Montreal. Obviously, that's the next step. You go from a challenger to a champ. That's the right trajectory. And, you know, I know, like you said, you want to take a little bit of time off. I also know you. You're not turning that fight down. How long actually was it before they called with that offer?
I actually am not too sure, because I always tell my coaches and my team everything. I said, after a fight, don't talk to me about a fight for 1 week. I don't want to hear nothing about it. I want to enjoy my time off. I want to relax. I don't want to think about fighting and getting into the cage for 1 week. Give me 1 week and don't talk to me about it. So I'm pretty sure they had already been talking about it. Like I heard kind of like whispers behind my back about it. So I know they had ideas. Like they make jokes. The coaches make jokes saying that on the bus ride back from the venue that they were talking about the Montreal fight. It's like this. So shut up.
Well, this is working out to be perfect timing. Like I said, it is the next step, and you know now you find yourself in a position you're in the top 10. If you beat a former champ, then you're in the title conversation. And these fights are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Does the pressure increase? Like, do you feel the pressure increasing with each fight, or are you able to look at this as, you know what, she's the former champion, she's the one who's got to deal with the pressure?
I mean, they're both. Like, there obviously is pressure that comes with it, but like, you know, like they say, pressure makes diamonds. And I'm thankful for the opportunities that I get. And no matter what, there's going to be those nerves and there's going to be the pressure that comes with it. Like, if it was easy, everyone would do it. And so I kind of like, bring it on, baby, I can take it.
Well, that's awesome. And you know, when we talk about Andrade, I mean, she's so well known, she's so well scouted, but when you look at her career now, and especially as a flyweight, do you see how she's changed over the years? Is there anything that you look at and go, I want to focus on this? Like, how do you break her down as an opponent?
Um, I haven't watched too many of her fights yet. Like, I mean, I've obviously watched like on the nights that she was competing, I'd obviously watched the fights, but I've only watched probably four of her fights, like in anticipation of fighting her. So I haven't quite done all my breakdown of her yet. But in addition, my coaches mainly do all that kind of stuff and just like train me according to what they believe will kind of like be able to exploit any weaknesses in her. That being said, I you know, I know what I have in front of me. Like I know that she's, you know, big or little, but you know, jacked, but and hits hard. And so I kind of like I understand the beast in front of me, and so I'm just gonna continue to work on me and like my skills, and you know, be involved with like things that I can control, things that I can change. And you know, that's me, and making sure that I'm doing my runs and on my diet and doing all the practices and like doing all the right things to be able to perform the best that I can possibly be on fight night.
I know you did this the last camp, but are you doing like the kind of social media or lockdown, so to speak, kind of keeping the focus on the camp entirely?
Yeah, I've been doing that for the last probably two camp, maybe three camps now, and it's been great. You know, and it's not like this takes a lot of time or anything like that, but it's still like a lot of time I'll be in practice or doing my notes after practice, and I'm like, oh yeah, I have an interview. So it just kind of like changes my thought process. Whereas when I'm able to kind of shut it down, then I can only focus on the fight. I can like literally sit down and sink in. And the only thing going on in my life from now until fight night is has to do with the fight, and nothing else kind of exists in my mind other than getting my hand raised at the end of that night.
I like it. I used to think I think it was Justin Gage. I think a few people have said this, but they always say like, the world ends on that night, the night of the fight. I don't look at anything past that. I don't think about anything else. I'm just focused on that night. Are you training entirely at Niagara Top Team for this? Are you staying in Canada? Are you going south at all?
No, I'm staying in Canada for this one. It makes sense. The last one, it made sense because I was fighting in Saudi Arabia. So to be on that side of the world, it made sense to be in Thailand, and then do my camp there and then just like jump over to Saudi. Whereas this one's in Montreal. So, you know, it makes sense for me to be home. I have great training partners here. In addition, like within probably an hour and a half travel, I have, in addition to my partners, great partners. So I have more than enough bodies here to get me prepared for this fight. And, you know, Montreal's not too far. So it makes sense.
Yeah, it's a drive up the highway. I'm going to be there for it.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
I wanted to ask too, because you're sitting there, you're wearing like the full send Canada shirt, and the world is kind of crazy. So I wasn't sure about the America question, but what was your take on everything that's been going on right now? Trump saying 51st state, and
Oh my goodness. I have no idea what to think about anything anymore. I feel like every time I start to like make an opinion on something, then something changes. I was like, oh well, that opinion has changed, but you know, I'm just gonna ride with it. I live in this country. If we become the 51st state, then we become, I don't know. I'll cross that bridge when it comes, if it comes, and it's all craziness.
I don't think it's happening, but it's certainly made for some
I
interesting
hope
times.
not.
I'm
Yeah.
actually going to the Miami card as well. I'm working that, so it's going to be an interesting one. First time going to the state since Trump came back into office. Okay, back to the fight. Something else I wanted to ask you: the same card, same night, UFC 315 co-main event. You have the champ of your weight class, Valentina Shevchenko, Manon Fiorot, obviously the challenger. First of all, who's your pick in that fight?
I think I'm gonna go Shevchenko in that fight. She's a champ. Like she knows how to be a champ. She trains like a champ, or from what it seems like. I think she's talented. I think she's gonna take it.
Now, if this was last year, I'd ask this question. It would be kind of fun and light. But this is actually a possibility. If Manon Fiorot drops out a couple days before the fight, are you game to step up because you're on the same card, you're ranked, and we saw this happen earlier this year with Renato Moicano.
Yeah, I mean, I would love that. I would absolutely love that. Unfortunately, there are two like, you know, another fight on the card that is a 25er, and they're ranked higher. It's the Grasso and Natalia Silva fight. So I would assume one of them would kind of get the offer. But if it's available, I will gladly take it.
Do you like seeing all the 25ers on one card, kind of stacking that division up a little in Montreal?
No, I wish it was just me, so then that like you would like you said, like that scenario could be more likely to happen. But I mean, whatever.
Good stuff. I'm gonna ask you one more, and then I'll let you go. Actually, this is obviously the next step in your career, and I'm not going to ask you to look past it because this is a huge one for you. We know what this means. If you get this win, you are in the title picture. But come May 10th in Montreal, or let's say May 11th, the following day, if you could write the headline for your fight and your night in Montreal, what is this headline going to read?
Jasmine Jasudavicius beats Shevchenko.
Fair enough. Like you said, maybe not likely to happen. So hopefully, it's probably going to say Andrade, maybe not Shevchenko. But if it does, I'm there for it. Good stuff, Jasmine. Hey, thanks as always for the time. Best of luck in camp. I know you really start buckling down next week, and looking forward to the fight as always.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure chatting. I'm glad we got it in before I jump into camp.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it. I'll see you in Montreal.
See you then. Bye.
Cheers.